Okay, so what I'm going to do is type in the word Scott. Oh, and Scott, S-O-T-T. That brings up the teacher that is covering the Gita. So I have Gita lesson number 3 due Saturday, January 11th. So I got a week. Ah, boy. But Gita lesson number 2 responses. Oh, fui. Gita lessons number 2. Gita lessons number 2. Where's oh shoot, I don't have. It looks like I don't have a Word doc. That's weird. I shouldn't have Word. Guess I'll have to read it out. I like to open it with my Microsoft Word doc. Microsoft Word app, and that way I can have it read it out loud to me. But I can read it right here. Here it is. So I'll just read it for you. So Gita 2025, Lesson 2, December 24, Chapter 1, Arjuna Vishada Yoga, verses 21 through 23. Thank you for you. Oh, I think I read this before. Thank you, everyone, for such responses. It's been a joy working through them. They are all worth reading if you have the time. Truth is like a diamond having many facets. I spread ideas through the text in hopes you'll come across them. We'll learn from all of those. We'll learn from all of us, from each other. We'll learn from each other. Here are a few ideas of a general nature applying to all of your responses. Choosing unilaterally between good and evil, right and wrong, seems simple enough at first. Yet it does not fully accord with the unitive vision taught by the Bhagavad Gita. Lesson 3 will bring this home. For now, the stage is set. We end the lesson with Arjuna resolved to examine both sides of the battle, which is the very first step in bringing non-dual wisdom into play. Right away, he sees the other side consists of exemplary people, just like his side. He calls into question the simple answers he has been taught before. Spoiler alert, the Gita is not about deciding between right and wrong. It is using their intersecting conflict to expand consciousness, to become all-exclusive. The ground for making distinctions in our actions has to be global, universal. We will be going beyond being on the right side of a war to transcending it entirely. Okay, for that matter, actual war is not the place to practice inaction or to tune out. The Gita's advice is primarily for personal development. It is not political except in the broadest sense. Here, an interesting article on the value of nonviolent activity for social transformation from an analytical perspective might help. So he gives a link. And so I'll skip that link for now. but I like to look at it later. But he goes on, at this stage, some of you are holding to popular beliefs about the Gita, and that will not be of much use in this course. Many of those beliefs directly contradict its teaching. I just perused a new version by an American that a friend of a friend is using to teach a course and found it trivial and unaware of many of the most important threads. Too bad. My commentary is a distillation of powerful teachings of my predecessors, and understanding it will come from simply reading the verses and taking guesses about what they mean. The Narayana Gurukula gurus brought tremendous erudition and full attention to bear. For well over a century, in our course means to take full advantage of what they realize. They offer it freely. In most cases, I will not be able to repeat what is already written in the commentary in my personal comments. We will use the written text as a jumping off point, a basis for transformative sharing of relevant ideas. I'm pleased that many of you are already serious, exploring valuable lessons. After this lesson, I'll have more time to devote to the joys of sharing thoughts with you. Happy New Year. Aaron, what a journey. Oh. We are on a battlefield that is clearly meant to be within ourselves, as noted by the fact that both sides are of the same clan. The sides of ourselves. Oh shit! No. What a journey. What about I feel? The sides of ourselves have attributes which I am sure are alluded to by the names of the fighters being listed out on both sides, likely known to those deeply familiar with Sanskrit, and especially those living in the last centuries BC in India, and maybe even through the symbolism of the weapons that are named. Interesting. Yes, the attributes within ourselves from all sides make a confused clang. Note possibly the word confused here instead of confusing is meant to place us in a perspective where the noise is part of us. It is personified. If the battle cries and clashing of weapons were confusing, they would be acting on the warriors. But if the clang itself is confused, then it is an agent of the battle, not just having an impact on its participants. We are the noise. A confused clang. Well, what I would say to that is that the translation I am looking at is by Nataraja Guru. So he he chose to use the word confused clang instead of a confusing clang, or instead of anything else. Maybe the word confused or confusing is not even the right word to choose. I would have to look at the Sanskrit and and learn Sanskrit and be able to know what other synonyms there might be for whatever word was used in Sanskrit. So, but it's interesting that he pointed that out. And what I could do is investigate further, looking up in what verse was the word confused used. The confused clang. Let's say that it's in verse 25 or whatever. I don't know how many verses there are in the first chapter. Maybe there's 40 some. I forget. I think I read through the first chapter already. Yet I remember looking, because I was paying attention to the word confused, and I did see confused clang in there. And it's referring to when, I guess when they were blowing their horns or making noise with their weapons and stuff. I guess they were making the battle cry. Maybe that confused clang was part of the battle cry. So, to be able to win, you must understand and have empathy for the whole of us. To be able to win, we must understand and have empathy for the whole of us, and not just vanquish the other from the perspective of only one side of ourselves. To understand the fullness of us, we must step outside our normal vantage point from within one aspect of ourselves, maybe even step outside of ourselves, so we can see and know the fullness of our predicament, so that the clamor of each of our aspects reaches us in full and even stereo, if you will. Thus, we must position ourselves in the center of the battle, not fully on one side or another, but to get even to that point of being able to see ourselves in our fullness of fully understanding even the battlefield we are on, in the warriors aspects of us on all sides. We must evoke the Guru to place us there. For going through our normal self, we will end up with vantage from one position to another, and our view will be colored through that veil. I'm confused myself. Let me read it again. To be able to win, we must understand and have empathy for the whole of us, and not look to just vanquish the other from the perspective of only one side of ourselves. To understand the fullness of us, we must step outside our normal vantage point from within one aspect of ourselves, maybe even step outside of ourselves, so we can see and know the fullness of our predicament. So that the clamor of each of our aspects reaches us. Man. To be able to win, to be able to win, that's in quotes, we must understand and have empathy for the whole of us, and not look to just vanquish the other from the perspective of only one side of ourselves. To understand the fullness of us, we must step outside our normal vantage point from within one aspect of ourselves. Maybe even step outside of ourselves so we can see and know the fullness of our predicament, so that the clamor of each of our aspects reach us in full and even stereo, if you will. Thus, we must position ourselves in the center of the battle, not fully on one side or another, but to get even to that point of being able to see ourselves in our fullness, or fully understanding even the battlefield we are on and the warriors aspects of us on all sides. We must evoke the Guru to place us there. For going through our normal self, we will end up with a vantage from one position or another, and our view will be colored through that veil. Note, I believe those advanced in the teachings will recognize that while an actual guru can play the role of helping place note, I believe those advanced in the teachings will recognize that while an actual guru can note, I believe those advanced in the teachings will recognize that while you know what? I think still puzzling over what this one student that wrote a well thought out response to lesson 2. I guess it is. And I think lesson 2 is referring to, or maybe lesson 1 and lesson 2 covers much of the first chapter. I'm not sure. What does lesson 1, lesson 2 cover? I'm a little confused. Let's see. Well, I know that lesson 2 covers verse 1 through 23. Okay, so it doesn't cover all the Gita. I mean, all the first chapter. It covers maybe half of the first chapter. So one of the students says, "What a journey! We are on a battlefield that is clearly meant to be within ourselves. It is noted by the fact that both sides are of the same clan. So the sides of ourselves have attributes. So we could think of ourselves. I'm thinking now. I'm not reading. So see, I'm reading from this email what one of the students replied. So yes, I hope the microphone is working. I think the microphone is actually going to be on the phone, not the headset. But it's a good microphone. It picks up pretty well. It's probably an omnidirectional microphone. So anyway, I was reading that same email and I stopped to review and make sure that it was being recorded. The audio was working. Yeah, and it was, because I had set up this wireless microphone, like a lavalier kind of thing. But I saw that it had shut down on my phone, and this side too. So I'm thinking, oh, maybe it shut down on me, so I better check. It's supposed to have 18 hours. It seems like, well, maybe it's because I had it turned on all night, and it ran out of electricity. Maybe that's... No, actually I had it turned off and I turned it on. And only after 10 or 15 minutes it shut down. But I didn't notice until the last moment. So I said, wait a minute, let's see if I got any audio. Because I don't want to be recording and not get any audio. But I did get audio. So I'll continue my reading from the email. Let's see. I got the email here. The email is actually dated, let's see if I can... Well, actually, that's the Word document. Let's see here. If I can pull up the email, the actual email itself. Okay, it was received December 30th. Okay. I got it December 30th. And I think I've read it before. Maybe this is the third time I go through it. But so let's see if I can. So I have an Android phone here, but it looks like I don't have Office installed. So I'll just go here and type Office. Maybe I should put 365. Type it in. Yeah, see if I can. Oh, it's open. So maybe I need to just download. Oh, I do have Word here. So, oh, I do have it. There it is. So I can go like this. Can you hear it?
2025 Lesson 2, December 24th, 2024. Chapter 1, Arjuna Vishada Yoga, verses 1 to 23.
So
Thank you for your good wishes. My back operation was a partial success. I have to be careful for another month, but I'm able to do gentle exercises, like moderating the class. Thank everyone for such rich responses. It's been a joy working through them. They are all worth reading if you have the time. Truth is like a diamond, having many facets. I spread ideas throughout the text, in hopes you'll come across them.
I don't like how it reads. I can't read much better, but I think I could do a little bit better here and there. I can pause immediately. So one of the students is saying, the first one saying, so, wow, what a journey. We're on a battlefield that is clearly meant to be within ourselves, as noted by the fact that both sides are of the same clan. So that reminds me of the song by Joni Mitchell, Both Sides Now. So maybe, I've looked at clouds from both sides now, but still somehow it's clouds, illusions I recall. I really don't know clouds at all. Clouds. So, could that mean, did she mean the clouds as in thoughts? And that the sky is our mind? I don't know. I'd have to look up Joni Mitchell, what she meant by that somewhere. About that song, Both Sides Now, I think that's what the name of the song is. To see if someone has figured out what she meant by that. Okay. So what a journey. We are on a battlefield that is clearly meant to be within ourselves, as noted by the fact that both sides are the same clan. So we can think of the clan as being our body, ourself. That's how I'm interpreting it for now. And so we have sides. So we do have sides in our body, the left side and the right side, the left hand and right hand, and left foot, right foot, left eye, right eye, left hemisphere and right hemisphere for the brain. So we are on a battlefield. So the battlefield, we can think of our body, and the situations with our body is like being on a battlefield. And both sides. So each side of ourself has attributes, which I'm sure alluded to by the names of the fighters being listed out on both sides, likely known to those deeply familiar with the Sanskrit, and especially those living in the last centuries BC. So maybe there's meaning to those names. Sorry if I make you a bit dizzy. So the sides of ourselves have attributes, which I am sure are alluded to by the names of the fighters being listed out on both sides, likely known to those deeply familiar with Sanskrit, especially those living in the last centuries BC, and maybe even through the symbolism of the weapons that are named. The attributes within ourselves from all sides make a confusing clang. Note possibly the word confusing here instead of the word confused, the way it's stated. A confused clang. I guess he's thinking, oh, what? Why is it confused? How could a clang be confused? Instead of a confusing clang. Oh, because a confusing clang would confuse the minds of the warriors. It would be meant to possibly cause confusion. So it's confusing when you hear it. But confused, perhaps, suggests confused. So note, let's have the word
We will learn from all of us. Note, possibly the word confused here. The attributes within ourselves, from all sides, make a confused clang. To be able to win, we must understand and have empathy for the whole of us, and not look to just vanquish the other from the perspective of only one side of ourselves. To understand the fullness of us, we must step outside our normal vantage point from within one aspect of ourselves, maybe even step outside of ourselves, so we can see and know the fullness of our predicament. So that the clamor of each of our aspects reaches us in full and even stereo, if you will. Thus,
we have to go like this.
we must the sides of ourselves have attributes, which I am sure are alluded to by the names of the fighters being listed out on both sides, likely known to those deeply familiar with Sanskrit and especially those living in the last centuries BC, and maybe even through the symbolism of the weapons that are named. The attributes within ourselves, from all sides, make a confused clang. Note, possibly the word confused here, instead of confusing, is meant to place us in a perspective where the noise is part of us, it is personified. If the battle cries and clashing of weapons were confusing, they would be acting on the warriors. But if the clang itself is confused, then it is an agent of the battle, not just having an impact on its participants. We are the noise. To be able to win, we must understand and have empathy for the whole of us, and not look to just vanquish the other from the perspective of only one side of ourselves. To understand the fullness of us, we must step outside our normal vantage point from within one aspect of ourselves, maybe even step outside of ourselves, so we...
So yeah, it's kind of hard to read from this email and have it steady while the dog is pulling me. No, possibly the word confused here instead of confusing. Because the attributes within ourselves from all sides make a confusing clang. So in the Gita, somewhere in the verse between 1 through 23, there's a confusing clang being made. A confused clang, so instead of confusing clang. In other words, the function of the clang is to confuse the other side, to put fear in the other side. So maybe that's what it means by confused. It should cause fear. But that should have fits that if that's what it was meant to, or normally we would say it that way, confusing. But the translator translated it as confused. So was it his mistake? Or was it intentional to write confused versus confusing? That's a good question. No. Okay, so how do we figure this out? Yeah, like I said earlier, I would have to know Sanskrit to see if the translator chose correctly. Did the authors of the Gita mean confused or confusing? That could probably be figured out if I look at the verse in different translations and see what they chose. For example, the word clang. Clan? No, clan. Not clang. I mean, in this case, confused clang is correct. CLANG is in a noise, is a clang. No, there's another word, not C-L-A-N-G, but C-A-L-N. That's a different word. Clan. That means like a tribe. A people. So, but also, I think I'll have to find the exact spot in the Gita where it is talking about how, I think Arjuna is talking about the clan, C-L-A-N, clan. Well, at least that's one translation of the word, whatever it was in Sanskrit, the word clan. But in another translation of the Gita, the word caste is used. So, so Arjuna is saying that, or is it Krishna? I think Arjuna is saying, in the sense of the word caste, that something like a war can cause a caste to fall apart. And in the same verse, but in another translation, it's not caste but clan. So when I first encountered it, I saw, wow, caste. Yes, that's interesting, because it's talking that war is bad for the caste. The people of a particular caste, it could deteriorate, degenerate. The caste could degenerate. But in another translation, it's clan could degenerate. So perhaps the word clan was chosen over caste to have people who are kind of trying to who have the sense that the caste system is kind of bad, or there's negativities in it in a society. So maybe they chose to use the word clan instead of caste. So not get so political or something. But I think clan is used where caste is used in another translation. So in the translation I'm looking at, I think clan is preferred over caste. C-A-S-T-E. Right? So I'd like to question why. Or make a note of it. Interesting. And I would speculate on it. I would dare speculate on it. Okay. I will go here. So, I don't need this. That's good for hearing, but I don't go inside now. So I like to further investigate. So I'm going to append this video to what I was reading as I was walking the dog. Because when I was walking the dog, there's a interesting email. Maybe I could put it up again. Well, it was the email. Well, maybe now it's... If I could open up Word. I don't have Word. There it is. I think it's this one. Maybe okay, put this in. I put this one at the beginning of the book. So, this email, the teacher says, thanks for your seriousness about this and the study. And the Gita seems like it's a power struggle between good and evil, but it's more than that. It tries to transcend that. And then one of the students has a nice response, a well thought out response. And here he's talking about verse 13. The attributes within ourselves from all sides make a confused clang. Attributes. So what he's saying is that the Gita represents what we're doing. We're on a battlefield. We are on that battlefield between brothers, actually cousins, within one clan. So you can think of the one clan as ourselves, our complex. So it's been drawn up into sides, and you can think of the sides as like it could be the left side versus the right side of the body, or the right side of the brain versus the left side of the brain, like the hemispheres. And you could think of the right side of the brain as able to do this and that, whereas the left side of the brain is more inclined to do that or this. And you could think of the sides as having attributes. And they are alluded to in the names of the fighters being listed out on both sides. Likely known to those deeply familiar with Sanskrit, and especially those living in the last centuries BC, and maybe even through the symbolism of the weapons that are named. And then it ends with a confused clang is made. There's noise made from both sides. And it's translated here, well, in Nitya Chaitanya Yati's Bhagavad Gita. Actually, it was translated by Nataraja Guru. It was translated as a confused clang. So, why wasn't it translated as a confusing clang? So possibly the word confused here, instead of confusing, is meant to place us in a perspective where noise is part of us. It is personified. If the battle cries and clashing of weapons were confusing, they would be acting on the warriors. But if the clang itself is confused, then it is an agent of the battle, not just having an impact on its participants. We are the noise. So that's interesting. But I just wanted to see how maybe other Gitas, other translations of the Gita would deal with whatever the Sanskrit is in this case. And it's probably not going to be often translated as confused, but something else. And so I decided to check for myself. And I found something interesting. But before I show you what I found, let me show you how it's translated in the book we're studying. So let's see, I go like this. And I go to my WhatsApp. So in the book that we're studying, it's translated as a confused clang. And here's the actual phrase of that verse. It's actually verse 13 of the Gita, the first chapter too. Then conches and drums and gongs, other drums and horns were played together suddenly, and that sound made a confused clang. Clang. Well, that's a picture of it, but I can just show it to you. I don't have to show you the picture of it. It's right here. It's no, that's not it. That's verse 17. I have to go back to verse 13. Here it is, because this is verse 14, so this must be 13 right above it. Then conches and drums and gongs, other drums and horns were played together suddenly, and that sound made a confused clang. And it's interesting that the Sanskrit is right there. What is clang? So, what word in Sanskrit was taken to be confused? That's interesting, isn't it, to consider? And it so happens that the word is right there. The word for confused is right there. Tumula, with an H with a dot underneath. So I wanted to look that up in a Google Translate, Tumula, but you can't detect the language. Maybe if I wrote this, Abhavat Tumula, it would detect that it's Sanskrit, maybe, or maybe Hindi. I don't know. And then I would have to also be able to write the H with a dot underneath, and I'm not able to. I had to look up. How do you do that? You can hold the letters, like the vowels and some consonants. Then you can select. You have several options to select alternate characters that are related to the one you're holding on. You know, the accents and the diacritical marks that could go to a letter, like the letter A. You have the bar over the A, the accent over the A that's used in Spanish, and then there's an accent that goes the other way, and there's an umlaut. But for the letter H, there's one other option, but not the dot underneath the H. And there's also a need for dots underneath other letters. Let's see if I can find the dot underneath the N. The dot underneath the S. So I need to find a book on the art of writing diacritical marks. And what do they mean? It's like the extended ASCII code or something that is needed, or Unicode or whatever. An extension. I need an extension to a regular keyboard. Anyway, so my research for the verse starts right here, down here in this page. That's page 25 of the Bhagavad Gita by Nitya Chaitanya Yati, translated by Nataraja Guru. There's Nitya. So verse 13, it's saying Tata Sankhascha Viryascha. Tata means then. Sankha means conscious. Cha Virya cha and drums, and then this long word is saying gongs, other drums and horns. And then this word means were played together suddenly. Is that word? That sound, sah, shabda, that sound, abhavat, tumultuous, made a confusing clang, a confused clang. We tend to want to say a confusing clang instead of a confused clang. And you know what? I looked what other translations of the Gita use for tumula. And guess what? Another one I found is tumultuous. They use the word tumultuous. It's quite close to the word tumula. So tumultuous is an interesting word. So let's look at, see if I can find another Gita. Let's see. So here's another Gita. This one's by Radhakrishnan. So if I go forward, Maybe I went too far. Chapter 1. Okay, I'm getting warm. So, how do I go next? I can just scroll down. So, I think that's the second verse. So I go down to the 13th verse. There it is. The da. And the last line says Shabdas Tumulo Bhava. Tumulo Bhava. Huh. The Sanskrit is different. Over here it's Bhavat Tumula, and here it's Tumulo Bhavat. They got these words. Change the order. But interesting, the difference in translation. So this one says, then conches and drums, gongs, other drums. Other is probably in parentheses because it's not really there in the Sanskrit. Because the word drums is used twice. So conches and drums and gongs. So they put other drums. So other kinds of drums. And horns were played together suddenly, and that sound made a confused clang. Okay, that's verse 13 according to this one, this Gita. Now verse 13 according to the Gita by S Radhakrishnan. Here's verse 13 right there. Now there's the Sanskrit, pretty much the same, except the last line, a little bit different. There, right there. Oops, there. So it's translated as, then conches and kettle drums, tabors and drums, and horns suddenly were struck, and the noise was tumultuous. The noise was tumultuous. The noise was tumultuous. Instead of made a confused clang. Well, the word clang could be thought of as noise. Confused noise. No. Here it's the noise was tumultuous. And the Sanskrit is different. Here it's tumulo bhavat, and it's got a hyphen in front of the bhavat. Well, here it's abhavat tumula. Interesting. Okay, so what's my point? No point at all. There's just I don't consider it an anomaly. I just say it happens. And it's kind of interesting what my fellow student Aaron thought about, he probably wondered, why is he translating it as a confused clang instead of a confusing clang? He suspects, or he's speculating, or this is his theory. Confused is meant to place us in a perspective where the noise is part of us. It is personified. If the battle cries and crashing of weapons were confusing, they would be acting on the warriors. If the clang itself is confused, then it is an agent of the battle, not just having an impact on its participants. We are the noise. So maybe we are the noise. Maybe we, as in the soldiers, are the noise. Perhaps. And you could think of, because the soldiers are producing the battle cry, are generating the noise. They probably practiced their instruments before going out on the field, so maybe they're putting their soul into the noise. I don't know. I wonder. If they took turns making the noise. Because here it says in verse 14, it says, the son of Pandu blew their divine conches. Sri Kesha blew Panchajanya. So Krishna blew Panchajanya, and Arjuna blew Devadatta. What is Devadatta in this case? He of wolf-like appetite and deeds of enormity blew his great conch, Pandra. I'm trying to figure out if this confused clang, maybe it's referring to dissonant. It's dissonant. Interesting. Okay, so this is just a glimpse of what the study of the Gita is like. And I'm just looking at different. I'm mostly looking at this version of the Gita and its commentaries, but I'm also looking at a few others and seeing, comparing to get some insight. So I hope someone out there enjoys this and gets something out of it. I'm getting something out of it. And let's go on, continue studying, I guess.